Right, good afternoon everyone. Welcome to the Huddersfield Planning Committee. I'm the chair here, and on my left I've got my legal advisor, and on my right my planning advisor. Right, we'll start then with membership of the committee. Have we any substitutions? No. It looks as though we have one. Have we? And apologies for not being here.
Councillor Patrick has sent his apology.
Thank you. Minutes of previous meeting. Somebody prepared to move? Is that seconded? Somebody second, yes? All in favour, please show. Thank you. Interest and lobbying. Councillor McGuinn.
Non-chair. Non-chair.
Councillor Firth?
No.
Councillor McGuinn, sorry. No. No. Councillor Sauer?
No.
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 No. No. No.
Yeah.
The penultimate one.
Yeah. I've been lobbied on 2019 92566. No advice given, and 2019 91365, and the only action was to ask the committee to consider it.
And I have none. So move on to item 4, admission of the public. The public are here. A little thin today, but so is our agenda. Deputations and petitions. None. Public question time.
Non-chair.
None. So we move on then to local planning authority appeals.
Thank you, Chair. My name's Teresa Harlow, Development Management Team Leader. Agenda item 11 sets out 8 appeal decisions to report. 6 of those were dismissed, 2 were allowed, and 2 decisions were taken by subcommittee. Those were at 2.6, which was a retrospective application for an extension at 8 The Crest at Bradley, which was dismissed at appeal. And at 2.4, a reserved matters application for the erection of 2 dwellings at Butt Lane, Hepworth, which was allowed on appeal, and also costs were awarded against the council in respect of that decision. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, and in view of that, I'd like the senior planning officer to come in and make some comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. So, members, you'll recall Butt Lane. It was a site that was a housing allocation. It was a remainder of a parcel of land, sloping site near a watercourse. Outline permission was granted. Reserve matters came in for 2 houses. The cost award was based on the fact the council was unable to substantiate with evidence its reason for refusal, which related to its concern over flood risk and drainage. Now, the issue at hand isn't that members aren't entitled to disagree with their technical officers or have local knowledge that might mean that modelling that predicts where flood water goes can be disproven. But in the absence of evidence, we do run the risks of costs being awarded against us. So this isn't to say to members you shouldn't go against officers or technical advice, but you must be able to evidence that reason for refusal. And in this case, we couldn't do that, and a full award of costs was made against the council as well as the appeal being allowed. So it's a bit of a learning exercise for us members.
Right, then we'll move on to planning applications. So page 45, it's the site visit we made this morning to Mary Lane, St Mary's Rise, Netherthong, and we've got the Prow officer.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. My name is Giles Cheetham and I work on public rights of way matters for the council. The decision for members on this item is whether the council should make an order to add a public footpath to the formal record of public rights of way. Officers would note that they have received a late submission on behalf of YCP, the owner of the field. This letter has been circulated to members and is supportive of the officer recommendation, but critical of the officer report on various points. The officer recommendation is that the council does not make an order, as the available evidence does not make this requisite. This is described at part 6 of the report with reasons. The report is before members. Thank you, Chair.
We have Nigel Kay.
Yeah, everybody knows this field in Netherthong as the sledging field. Might not have a name, but all the kids used it as kids, as for sledging in the winter. We used to use it regularly for going across. I live on the estate. We used to go back the other way to catch the bus at the top. Kids used to use it for going to school. And then suddenly a sign went up a good few years ago saying, this is not a footpath, keep out. There was barbed wire put on all of the 5-bar gate fence. And then after that, a barbed wire fence was put right around the perimeter. And the actual way through on the stone stile was then bricked up. And I have sent in photos of this. That's about it, really. But I'm saying we've always used it as a footpath. And then we got told it wasn't a footpath and we couldn't use it because of the barbed wire fencing.
We have Christine Senior.
My name is Christine Senior. I'm a footpaths officer for the Ramblers Association, and I'm here about the footpath that leads from St Mary's Estate over to Mary Lane. It's across a field which is currently being developed by a builder. I've used that footpath for well over 50 years, and there's another one that joins onto it as well. So I just hope they're going to keep a footpath going through that estate.
Andy Dunlop.
When an application is to alter the record of public path is received, Kirklees County Council Public Rights Survey Department uses a priority matrix scoring system to evaluate requests for definitive map modification orders and thereby their order of dealing. It also uses the same matrix like a lightsaber to justify and deflect inquiries from applicants and landowners, some of whom have been on the list since 1988. Waiting to hear if they've been successfully claimed or who have been blighted by an application to place a public right-of-way on their property. The impact of this is far-reaching both on businesses and people trying to sell their homes and land. There is a statutory saving grace, though, where a claimant, just the claimant of a right-of-way, can use a process known as a Schedule 14 appeal to the Secretary of State. The Minister can and does give councils firm instructions and deadlines to move on with these stale applications. Kirklees currently has 12 directions to determine sitting in a pseudo-priority list at the head of the priority matrix. This is more than any other county I'm aware of. One of these, having sat for a considerable period of time already, was ordered on June 2017 to be determined by June 2018. But almost 2.5 years later, it still has not even been started. The landowners of this claimed path are senior in years and are under great strain as a result of the claim on their property. Inquiries of officers are met with a shrug of shoulders and a denial of all knowledge of any ongoing work on Schedule 14 applications. Indeed, letters from the Secretary of State to Kirklees' own solicitors are not even answered. Yet, as if by magic, today you are presented with an application to add a footpath at Netherthong. This application was made on the 19th of July 2017, post the aforementioned direction by the Secretary of State. This application achieved a mediocre score of just 6 points, placing it at number 100 priority in a list of 146, and well below the priority of the 12 already ordered Secretary of State determinations. Examination of the witness evidence of this Netherthong application clearly indicates that there is a required reasonable allegation of the existence of a footpath and that the matter should be tested. By that I mean an order made and, if the landowner
30
or
seconds.
others object, heard at public inquiry. But mysteriously, officers who are normally ultra-assertive in claiming public rights of way have in this instance chosen to ignore the evidence and guide the elected members to reject the application. So we have to ask, how did this application, just 2 years old, at 100th place in the priority matrix, get to the top of the list presented today? Why have the officers decided to ignore the reasonable allegation? And what inducement or incentive has
Thank you, your
placed
time's
the
up.
Public Rights
Thank
Away
you.
Department or
Thank
its
you,
members?
that's it. You've had your time.
Question the process. Make your own minds up. Do your job.
We have Stuart Brown.
Thank you, Chair and members of the Planning Committee. My name's Stuart Brown of Yorkshire Country Properties. We are the owner of the land currently being developed for housing, including much needed starter homes, which are included in our Netherthong project. The Clane footpath cuts across our land, but most importantly also cuts across private land owned by Mr and Mrs Hurst at the head of the cul-de-sac of St Mary's Rise, which has never been part of the highway. I am speaking in support of the recommendation to refuse the footpath application. Yorkshire Country Properties is a local developer based in Home Firth. We've been building houses in Home Valley for many years, employ local tradesmen and source all our building materials locally. We are passionate about design and ensuring our projects blend in with the landscape and the surrounding area. We want to leave all our projects when we're finished so they look as if they belong and have been established there for years. We feel we've done this on every occasion, and this site will be no exception. Our business ethos is about positive and open dialogue with neighbours surrounding our sites. I personally have a positive dialogue with all the surrounding neighbours at Netherthong. The public footpath materialised in July 2017. In May 2018, we received planning permission for the development. Shortly after this was approved, the applicant applied to withdraw the footpath application. In addition, the main other affected landowners also withdrew some of their evidence. Confusing as planning law is, I understand now that even though it's withdrawn, it still needs to be determined. This application has been a problem and is delaying our project. We've had to consider rescheduling works and laying off local contractors. Everyone, including the neighbours, are keen for the project to be completed. We are working closely with Homes England, the government housing body, which is supporting our Netherthong project, starter homes, employment and tradespeople in Kirklees. It's almost 18 months since the applicant tried to withdraw the footpath application, and our business really needs closure on this matter. Finally, I would like to thank the Council, and in particular the officers who have completed a thorough investigation of the evidence, which there is no doubt. I do hope that the members today agree with the recommendation to
30
refuse
seconds.
so that we can all move on, including the residents. Thank you.
Okay, we have Noel Scanlon.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman and members. I shall stress from the outset that YCP obviously supports the recommendation to refuse to make the order. We've had to write to Mr Cheetham in advance of committee sitting today. Sorry about that. This is just sensible commercial contingency planning and the preservation of a position which hopefully comes across within that letter that you will have had. We obviously hope that you are minded to support the officer recommendation to refuse the application in any event. The law here requires that highways need to connect to other highways or places to which the public have a right of access. And the simplicity here is that Mr and Mrs Hurst's land at the end of St Mary's Rise is privately owned land. It's not highway land and it's not a place to which the public has access, which is now confirmed in evidence. The proposed footpath and the tarmac on St Mary's Rise, where the extent of the adopted highway ends, and the proposed footpath are separated by Mr and Mrs Hurst's private land. Aside from that obvious point, as well as crossing Mr and Mrs Hurst's land with permission, you've received evidence about the way being blocked with cars, caravans, bathtubs, etc. And we know that Mr and Mrs Hurst are planning to build a garage on that land. However, you've also had evidence concerning the fencing in the field, signage, the farmer blowing his tractor horn at trespassers, and overall absolutely no intention to dedicate a footpath across the main field. All that we would add is that the weight of evidence is overwhelming. The council now has no credible evidence before it to demonstrate that there has been 20 years continuous use without interruption as of right. So without force, without secrecy, without permission. The latest evidence following the council officer investigation has clearly identified that permission was granted to cross Mr and Mrs Hurst's land, and intention to negate has also been demonstrated in the main field. Where members are minded to support the officer recommendation to refuse the application, as we hope and trust that you are, then the only person who can appeal this decision is the applicant himself. Note, the applicant is not present today. An appeal won't happen because the applicant has tried to withdraw the footpath application and most importantly now realises his mistake when submitting it in the first place, as he has conveyed in writing to the council. The neighbours and local residents overall don't want a path. What comes across from the latest superseded user evidence is that alleged
30
users
seconds.
may have originally made this application without full knowledge of the law and what they were perhaps getting into, and Mr and Mrs Hurst have certainly conveyed that position. As Stuart said, the business now needs closure and to get on with building much needed housing in accordance with the planning permission granted, and we do hope that you're minded to support the recommendation, and we're obviously happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Members. I'm prepared to move officer's recommendation. Is that seconded? All those in favour, please show. Go.
No orders made.
Next application, page 159. Springfield Avenue, Thornton Lodge.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Neil Bearcroft and I've acted as case officer on this application. The application is for the erection of extensions at 39 Springdale Avenue, and members visited the site this morning. The application site can be seen on the photo in front of you. It's this property here, which has been previously extended, but is a two-storey stone-built terrace dwelling that has been linked to the taller property to the right-hand side. That's the rear, and then there is another picture of the rear that shows an area of parking and some decking. The application was deferred from the April Planning Committee for the applicant and officers to find an acceptable scheme after officers had concerns with the design of the proposal. Amendments have been subsequently secured. This is the amended scheme. It now proposes a two-storey extension to the rear, which would project out 3 metres at first floor and 4 metres at ground floor, with an area of decking attached to the rear. 2 small dormers would also be included in the front. The scheme, as now amended, is considered to be acceptable to plan officers and design terms and would have an acceptable impact on the street scene and also the amenity of adjacent residential properties, and the parking area would be retained. The amended scheme has been re-advertised to local residents, which closed on the 30th of September, and as set out in the update, there's been no comments on the application. The application is therefore recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Members, Councillor.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think many of us were on the site visit previously, and I think it was agreed it was very disproportionate, the previous application. This one is a lot more realistic. It's more within size of what can be achieved. I'm happy to actually move the officer recommendation. Thank you.
Is that seconded or?
Yeah,
And you wish to speak? No? Anybody else wish to speak? It's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please show. Is that unanimous?
No. Yes.
Yes.
Unanimous, yeah.
Thank you.
Applications approved.
Next, page 169. It's Titanic Mills, Westwood Lane, Linthwaite.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Nicholas Hurst, Planning Officer. This application seeks a change of use of parts of the third and fourth floors of Titanic Mills. The third floor would host a laboratory, a B1 use, and a training facility, a D1 use. The fourth floor would host sleeping accommodation ancillary to the D1 use. The proposal includes a formation of 34 car parking spaces to operate alongside the proposed uses. Just as a bit of background, Titanic Mills is a Grade 2 listed textile mill. In 2002, it was granted planning permission for conversion. This included a spa and restaurant at ground floor levels, with the upper levels being approved for up to 125 flats. The development was part implemented, many flats and the restaurants were not implemented. Subsequent applications approved some of the residential units to be hotel accommodation. Nonetheless, parts of the building remain vacant. This includes the area under consideration by this application. This plan shows the existing arrangement of the upper floors. The layout includes the flats as approved, however those in the red area were not implemented. So the third and fourth floors. And it's the southern end in red as opposed to the entirety of the floors. This plan shows the proposed third floor. The proposed uses would have sole use of the southern staircase, cited there. Two of the staircases would remain in residential use or for use by the spa. Doors connecting the proposed uses to the residential areas, cited there, would be fire doors and would not be used as general circulation. The laboratory would be site located in the southern corner and would operate separately from the D1 use. It would have a floor area of 150 square metres. The applicant's statement on the proposed use is as follows. The laboratory would be used for testing of computers and laptops and telephones in connections with investigations by public agencies and the police, HSE and trading standards. The testing will be related to data recovery. The applicants have confirmed that this will be sole work carried out in the facility. The remainder of the third floor would host a training facility. This includes training facilities for the spa staff, training in customer and public relations, as well as the training of overseas police officers. And this image shows the ancillary residential accommodation for 30 units plus communal area. This plan shows the proposed 34 parking spaces sited to the southern side of the building. The car park would be self-contained. The access is existing, however, will be improved as part of this application. The gate would be set back and a footpath would be provided. And that's just an image of the existing access. And the southern elevation of the building with the access to the staircase being these two doors on the left, with the right, just for context, being where the restaurant was approved but never implemented. But as an exam permission, it could be so. The report before members outline the officer's full assessment. In summary, while the site has an extant residential permission, this has not been implemented within the site in over 15 years, specific to these floors, that is. In general, policy supports economic growth and supporting the needs of businesses. Therefore, in principle, the development is considered acceptable. Turning to the local impact, the chief considerations have been residential amenity and highways. First, considering residential amenity, the specific proposed functions of the laboratory and training facilities are considered compatible adjacent to residential uses. This is subject to a noise mitigation strategy being provided and the hours of use being secured by condition. This includes a 1-year trial for weekend use of 9 till 6, alongside the 9 till 6 through the week. As has been noted, the commercial uses are to have their own access arrangements and will not conflict with residential users and their communal areas. Therefore, subject to condition, officers are satisfied that the proposal would not harm residential amenity. Turning to parking, turning to highways, 34 parking spaces are to be provided. The level of parking is considered acceptable for the proposed use, and the dedicated access will prevent conflict externally between residents and commercial users. A footpath is to be provided along the frontage to ensure the access provides suitable sightlines, and therefore officers are satisfied there are no highways concerns. Other considerations, such as the impact on the historic environment, have been addressed within the officer report. Regarding public representations, 46 objections have been received. These raise concerns including the impact on residential amenity, impact on cars, as well as potential keeping of chemicals within the laboratory. These and other concerns are comprehensively addressed within the officer report. Based on the planning merits of the scheme, officers recommend approval with nothing further to add, Chair.
Councillor Rob Walker.
Right, thank you, Chair. I'm going to represent my own views, but these are based on some quite extensive consultations. I have visited the spa and discussed the developments with the owners and their agent. I've also discussed this with the residents who live in the development and with Pride in Linthwaite, who are a local community group. Many of my concerns, unfortunately, probably are not covered by planning law, so it makes it difficult to put those forward as reasons not to support anything. Generally, I do support this development. I'm very much in favour of business development in the Combe Valley, particularly when it's bringing back into full use a very majestic building, which is an important part of our industrial heritage. Titanic Spa is a very successful operation, and I think some of the things that are being proposed are very interesting. However, I am concerned about the interests of existing residents and also the wider community. I think from the existing residents, there is a feeling really that they're often treated as a nuisance rather than being important partners within an integrated community. And they feel that some of the promises that were made with the initial development, the spirit of those has not been upheld, even when, kind of strictly speaking in terms of planning law and enforcement and so on, probably things are covered. So a number of different concerns. Firstly, the parking concern. I do accept that within this development, the parking that is being put forward does look to cover the needs that will be generated by this development. But there is an ongoing problem. This was addressed when it came up as an appeal for enforcement of existing conditions. That appeal was not upheld. But there is a problem. There's a lot of cars parking on Low Westwood Lane, and that is causing difficulties. It's causing difficulties at the moment because often they park at both sides of the road. It also, I think, represents a threat to the potential development of Westwood Mill, which is across the other side of the road. I also think there have been problems with basic utilities such as water and electricity supplies to the existing flats, and also problems with ventilation down. The application does refer to these and says that they will be covered adequately. They are problems which are long-standing, and I'm not convinced that they've been tackled as effectively as they might have been in the past. The other big concern, I think, is the type of work that might take place in the lab. That has shifted since the early discussions I had when I visited the site, and I welcome those changes. My concern with that would be around the policing of that, enforcement of it, to ensure that this type of work using electrical equipment, computers and phones would be the type of the work that's conducted there, that it wouldn't move on to things that might involve things such as dangerous chemicals. Okay, so really a balanced view on this. I welcome it in many ways, but I do think that members of the planning committee do need to think about some of the concerns that have been raised by both people who live in Titanic Spa and the people in the wider community. Thank you.
We have Andrew Keeling.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. Andy Keeling, I'm a planning consultant. I'm the agent on the application. The spa and the apartments were originally developed out in sort of the early 2000s. And as members will probably recall, at that time, mid-2000s, the property market disappeared and the apartments that were approved were never completed. There was a total of actually 139 units completed. But that doesn't tell the whole story because 42 of those units are actually used by the spa as hotel rooms. So what I'm really saying to you is that the areas that have been left vacant would never actually be developed for apartments because there's simply not the market there at the moment at all. And for the foreseeable future, there won't be a market there. So the application that's before you is for two main uses. The B1 is the lab, and you've heard the description of that. It will be simply for the reception of electronic goods, computers and such like, which will be plugged into the tester's computer and information traced and information found out from various electronic sources. In terms of the training facility, that is intended for adults, and I do stress it's adults, professional people who will be coming for staff. This is not a freshers week sort of bedroom facility. This is for professional staff, mainly in the hospitality industry. There will be others, but mainly in the hospitality industry, and for training in customer care. And those people will come from all over Europe. The company that wants to run this already runs these courses, and people will come from far and wide. In terms of interaction with the existing residents, we have made sure that the access to the car park is separate. You will have seen it. It's an existing one, but it's not used by anybody. There is a separate car park. There is a separate access into the building, and there is no access within the building interactively. There are fire doors because if there's a fire, you have to get to both ends of the building. But those are only fire doors. You cannot get from the residential area into the other area. Just in terms of breaches of planning control, I refer to you to page 173 of your report. There have been no breaches of planning control. There is no evidence of a breach of any conditions. An allegation of a breach is not a breach. They have been allegations, but no conditions, no planning elements have ever actually been...
30 seconds.
Yes, there have been complaints, but nothing has ever been found. So in conclusion, Chair, I think what I would say is that if this approval is actually taken up, if the approval is given and it is taken up, then this will be the first time ever that this building will be fully occupied. It has never been fully occupied from the day it was built, because it was built at the wrong time when cotton industry finished it, when the wool industry finished it, and then the apartments were never finished.
Thank you,
Chair.
Thank you. Members. Yes, Councillor Smith.
Yeah, just picking up on Councillor Walker's point, in broad terms, I'm very happy with the arrangements for the use of the building. But once B1 permission is approved, is there any way we can sort of restrict some of the activities which the residents perhaps unhappy with going forward, or is that sort of an open ticket to do what they want once they've actually got the permission?
Through you, Chair, if it's a B1A, B1C, then it's a laboratory. We can retain it as a laboratory. A B1A would be an office, a general office. Yep. B1B would be light industrial, so we could restrict it to B1C and B1A. The floor space is only
150 square metres.
So it's a particular small element of the building. I think in the report it does say about restricting that area to just that floor space.
Is that your point? You're happy with that?
That's the point. So are you saying that we could restrict that to sort of B1, what was the suffix? C?
Through you, Chair, yes, we could do. We could limit it to B1C specifically, as opposed to general B1.
And is that the proposal, or is the proposal B1?
We could attach that to the, if we give approval to it, we could attach that to it.
Okay, thank you.
And then Councillor McGuinn.
Yeah, just following on for that point, because this was my concern when I was looking at it as well. So we're saying B1C, which is laboratory, but that to me has potentially quite a wide variety of uses. And I think the concern that people are raising is, how do we know it's not going to become either a chemical laboratory or all sorts of other things? So is it not possible to condition that they only use it for what they're setting out to use it for now, without, and if they wanted to change that, they would need to reapply? I mean, I think that's where the concern is. I'm not sure exactly what laboratory includes and what dangers could be associated with that in a residential area.
Yes, through you, Chair. There is a response to this in the officer's report, if I could but find it. We can't actually control directly the specific use in the laboratory. I think quite a lot of the concerns about what might be stored there and what kind of impact that would have. But the regulatory regimes for that are outside planning. So you might have the HSE, or you might have regulations to do with controlled substances there. So other kind of permits and consents they would need would be outside planning. So it would be impossible for us to say you can only use it as this, or you can't store chemicals, because that wouldn't be a precise or reasonable condition, because you might then say that something like a bottle of washing up liquid in the kitchen is a chemical, and therefore they shouldn't be storing it. But certainly there are other regulatory regimes to control specific substances.
Councillor McGuinn.
Oh yeah, sorry. Okay, I listened to what Councillor Walker said. He's been a very good constituency councillor, has been asking his residents of Titanic Mills what are their concerns. But as he said himself, a lot of the concerns he had are not strictly planning matters. We did go and have a look at Titanic Mills, and we could see a huge space available for parking there. And taking into account what the agent said, all the apartments haven't been completed, and it doesn't look as though there will be because of market conditions. And 42 apartments, did you say, were used for the spa at the moment? So there are plenty of space. If it wasn't for the spa, wasn't for business development, there would be plenty of space there. There's no demand for planned apartments, he mentioned. I think we could see there was going to be a separate entrance and fire door for the businesses there. And we talked to the planner, and he stressed that it was going to create jobs and it was good for the economy. The only thing I don't know if it was a planning condition. There's some cobbles outside, and I would like, could we keep the cobbles? I don't know if we could do that as part of the conditions for building, or talk to the developer about whether we could do that.
Through you, Chair, yes, if members were so inclined, that is a condition that would be likely reasonable. Thank you.
Okay. Having regard to all the arguments for and against it, I would like to move for approval of this, subject to the conditions laid down by the officer. Okay.
Councillor Griffiths.
I know that one of the concerns of the existing residents is that they moved in on the expectation that there was going to be storage for bicycles on site, which hasn't been provided. And I'm wondering whether that could be requested as part of this, as a condition of granting this licence. And the other thing I want to say is there is also, the restaurant is still a possibility. So actually, there could be a great deal more cars coming and going in the future than have been provided for under this application.
Through you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. No, it would be unreasonable in planning terms to expect this developer to provide bicycles for the entire residential unit. Unfortunately, what the condition would have to relate to the development being considered at this time. So we are just looking at what's available on the floor space. So the entire mill would not be acceptable. Regarding the the restaurant, that is a permission as exists now. So regardless of this development, that car park would likely the car parking as existing was approved to accommodate that restaurant. So the car parking as proposed now is solely to accommodate the new use. So the restaurant would be expected in the larger car park. Thank you.
It's been moved. Is somebody prepared to second it? It's seconded with those conditions that were mentioned.
Yes, Chair, there was 2 additional conditions limiting the laboratory use or that floor space to B1C only and to retain cobbles where possible at the site entrance.
All those in favour, please show.
Application's approved.
And so now, finally, page 191, 4 Chapel Street, Scapegoat Hill.
Thank you, Chair. My name's Emma Thompson. I'm the Planning Officer presenting this application. Members have a full report and update in front of them and have had the benefit of a site visit this morning. The application is brought to committee at the request of Councillor Griffiths for the reasons outlined in the report. The application seeks permission for the erection of extensions to both the north and south elevations as outlined fully in your update and for the avoidance of doubt. The site is located in an area designated as Greenbelt where proposals for extensions can be considered acceptable providing they do not result in disproportionate additions over and above the size of the original building. I would refer members to the full history of the site contained in your reports at paragraph 4.1 which explains fully the incremental increases that have already occurred at the building and at the site. This photograph shows the original building courtesy of the examiner. Just to recap, the barn was converted following approval of an application made in 2005. This involved an increase in height of the roof but was a sympathetic conversion retaining the character of the barn. A stone outbuilding was removed to mitigate the increase in volume. Permitted development rights were removed to prevent any further development and consequential harm. Residential curtilage was also restricted to the hatched area shown green. In 2010, an application for a double garage was approved, with one allocated to number 4 Chapel Street, so the double garage is shown on the plan, and the other garage to number 6 Chapel Street. In 2014, following a refused application to extend the residential curtilage, which was this plan, which was then subsequently reduced to this area shown within the red line. Pre-application submission in 2018 was considered by officers and the response was clear that any further development would result in disproportionate additions contrary to policy. Other than the adoption of the local plan, there have been no material changes to guidance. This plan shows the proposals, which is the first floor extension to the lean-to which we saw on site this morning, the porch, to the north elevation, and then on the southern elevation, which is the elevation that faces Chapel Street, there's the enclosed terraced area and the canopy over the bifold doors, which extends the existing dining area. I've tried to show on this final slide the existing development with that now proposed. So the proposed is hatched in green now. When the development proposed is considered cumulatively with the previous works and extensions to the barn, it is considered that the proposals would result in disproportionate additions to the host, thereby being inappropriate development in the green belt, failing to accord with policy. Furthermore, due to the design and scale, the proposed extensions would appear out of keeping with the agricultural character of the host building, appearing as insensitive additions that would fail to protect its original form and not subservient as required by Policy LP 24. The works would have a detrimental impact on the openness and character of the green belt in an open position where there is currently space. As such, the development is recommended for refusal for the reasons outlined in the report. Nothing further to add, Chair. Thank you.
We just have one speaker, that's Tim Hemingway.
Thank you, Chair and members. I'm the agent representing. As I'm sure you're aware from your site visit this morning, the proposals set forth in this application are not extravagant, they are not excessive, and they are, in actual fact, just a homeowner's efforts to improve the modest amount of living space that they currently have. We're well aware that the proposed extensions combined with previous extension work take us to the cusp of acceptable extension volume in the Greenbelt. However, these proposals do not take us beyond that threshold. In the statement that accompanied the application, we've set out clearly how the demolition of the shed to the front elevation provides volume that is utilised in the proposals to take the overall volume increase up to the 35% mark, the Kirklees rule of thumb threshold for volumetric increase. The proposals therefore do comply with current green belt planning policy, and they do respond to the pre-app comments received prior to submission. In that pre-app response, the LPA advised various reductions and modifications, and all of those were undertaken prior to the submission. As such, I hope it was clear when the committee visited site this morning that the proposals are not excessive, and that when viewed in context with the neighbouring properties are not dissimilar to the other local development. I also hope that it was clear that the proposals represent a really good improvement for the openness and visual amenity of the Greenbelt. In essence, we're seeking to remove an oversized, unsightly shed that occupies a prominent and visible position forward of the front elevation and consolidate that volume in the proposals that we have put forward for the rear elevation. That would be in a position where they're less visible and less impactful on the Greenbelt. Surely that must be a significant consideration and opportunity for the LPA in terms of improving the openness of the Greenbelt. In summary, the proposals set forth in this application do represent volumetric increase to the Greenbelt. However, it's not an excessive increase. These proposals will provide an overall improvement to the openness and visual amenity of the Greenbelt by virtue of the loss of the unsightly shed to the front elevation. As the local authority pointed out in their pre-app response, they do not undermine these proposals the character or the dominance of the host dwelling, and I would ask the committee to reject the recommendation made by the case officer and find in favour of my client. Thank you very much.
Members, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I think it is the overall design and scale. I think it is disproportionate. I think our officers have got it right. This is, if we look through the planning history, 2004, conversion alterations, 2005, more alterations, 2010, double garage, 2014, something that was refused, 2014, and it goes on and on and on. And I think that this particular one, the overall scale design is disproportionate, and I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation.
Councillor McGuinn.
I'll second Sheikh's Councillor Rose. And say I think there's not much disagreement about the figures. I think what it says in the officer's report is that it's a 65% increase over the original building, whereas the agent is saying it's a 35% of what is existing. So I don't think there's an argument about the figures. It's how you interpret the figures. And in this instance, I'm going with the officer's recommendation.
Any further speakers? If not, I've got a proposal in second. Councillor Uppel.
Sorry, can we just clarify why the difference, if that's okay?
Through you, Chair, I think the agent's referring to offsetting the cubic increase by removing a shed that's in the garden. There's no planning permission for that shed. It's not a substantial structure. It's of no strong built form. You can barely see it, and well, it's the building here. You can just see the roof of it, but it's not something that we would use to offset the increase in volume. The works to the house itself or the barn itself are disproportionate in their own right. Thank you, Chair.
So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please show. That's officer's recommendation.
11-4.
Against? Abstentions? And one abstention.
Applications refused.
That finishes today's meeting. Thank you very much.